Hey guys, Ezra here and welcome back to another Ezra review. And on today's video, I want to review Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Now, this is obviously the highly anticipated sequel of the first movie, and once again, the movie is directed by Emma Tammy and written by Scott Cawthon. And yeah, I have an opinion about the first Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I didn't really like it, and I was finding that to be a disappointing first movie. And I was hoping, at least from the trailer, it seems like this is going to be a much more fun sequel. And my God, I am glad to confirm that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is a much better movie than FNAF 1. At least for me. There is more action, more jump scare, more scenes with the animatronic, and some scene with the marionette or the puppet are actually creepy in a way. So yeah, there is a lot to look forward to, at least for you guys. But I'm gonna get to the positive aspect about the movie first, and then we're gonna get to the negative aspect, because this movie is not perfect, but it is much better than the first movie. So let's start. First of all, obviously, the most obvious part is actually the animatronic themselves. I think Jim Henson Creature Shop once again does a great job designing the animatronic. They look great. I also think that they use a lot more of this animatronic, and it was absolutely fantastic. Especially the voice acting for the animatronic, and this might come across as a surprise to you guys, because it was just announced before that, Kellen Goff is gonna be voicing Toy Freddy, Megan Fox is gonna be voicing Toy Chica, and matpat is voicing Toy Bonnie. And surprisingly, I did not see this coming, but Toy Chica has the most screen time in this movie. So you're gonna hear a lot of Megan Fox voice in this movie. But I'm happy to report that I think Megan Fox did a good job as Toy Chica. Same thing with matpat and obviously Callan Goff. I mean, Callan Goff is a voice actor, so like it's not surprising that he does a good job. But I think Megan Fox and matpat, I think they really tried to create their own voice in this movie. I mean, granted, the voice has some filters on it, because like this is a robotic voice in a way, but it does fit so well. And there is maybe a few lines, where you can tell that it was, oh, it's Megan Fox, or like, oh, it's matpat. But I think for the most part, I think they did a good job for voicing the animatronic now, especially with Toy Chica. Like she has a lot of screen time in this movie, which I did not expect that. But it kind of makes sense, because like Abby's favorite animatronic is Chica, so like yeah, makes sense in my opinion. Also the performers, I think the performers are solid. I think everybody does a good job in this movie, from Josh Hutcherson, Elizabethlail, piperrubio, Matthew Lillard as William Afton, even though he doesn't appear much, which to be expected, because he's gonna be the villain in the third movie, right? We all know that. Skeetulrich is playing Henry. I think he did a solid job for the amount of screen time that he got, and also McKennagrace. McKennagrace was in this movie, and she actually has a significant role in this movie, which I did not see that coming, because I thought that McKennagrace is gonna be like an opening kill or something like that, but not really. Like her character has some significant role in this movie, and she did a good job. And Wayne Knight, as Mr. Burke, which is like a teacher for Abby's school. He did a good job. He does committed to his roles. So yeah, I really like that. And I also want to praise the storytelling itself, the writing, because I think this is such a huge improvement, because you definitely feel the movie's like going forward. Like you feel engaged with the movie. You feel there is an energy in this movie, and something interesting or exciting happens. Pretty much like not all the time, but like it was paced perfectly, where there is a time where the characters are like relaxing and just like cooling down for a moment, and then there's a bunch of like action sequence that happens later on, especially in the second half of the movie. And it was absolutely fantastic, way more engaging than the first movie, because the first movie plot was boring in my opinion, where it feels like it takes too long just to see something interesting happen there. But with FNAF 2 in this movie, I think they were able to write the characters and then pace the storyline much better this time around, that you feel there is an energy in this movie, which I really, really like that, and I also want to praise that the movie is also attempting to be scary at times. There is more jump scare, like I said before, although that the jump scare might appear a bit cheesy at times, but at least there is more jump scare. Cool. And there is also more scary scenes, especially the way they handle the marionette, the puppet. I think it was actually creepy and cool at the same time. Like the way the puppet are using his powers in this movie, like I did not see that coming. That I was like, wow, this is actually terrifying, and it's actually kind of cool at the same time. Which is like, wow, I have again, I have such a huge praise that the movie is actually attempting to be a horror movie, and there is some kills in this movie that was kind of like pushing a little bit of the PG-13 rating, not by much, but like you can tell that they try to push the limit for PG-13, for the kills, which I really, really appreciate that. And also the music by the New Team Brothers, once again, the opening sequence are amazing, like it's just fantastic, the way the movie opens and then lead to the credit scenes, and then you definitely feel the excitement of this movie, and it was absolutely fantastic, from the acting, from the animatronics, from the scares, from the music as well, from the action sequences that we got. And I'm so glad that we got more scenes with the animatronics, because that's my wish for the second movie. And we did get that, and it was absolutely fantastic, and also I love how this movie also, obviously, leading up to FNAF 3, there is a scene that was like teasing for what could happen in FNAF 3. I mean, obviously, if you're already a big fan of FNAF 3, FNAF games, then you already know what's going to happen in the third movie. But I do think that the way they set up the plot for the third movie, I think is quite interesting, But which, again, I cannot spoil that, But still, it was interesting. So moving on to the parts that I think was like not that great. Let me just start with like the Wayne Knight's character, Mr. Burke's character. Mr. Burke is a teacher for Abby in the school, and he was supposed to be this, douchebag teacher. But I think the way Scottcawthon kind of like characterizing or like writing the character, Mr. Burke, is actually really, really cheesy. I kind of wish that the writing was much more natural, because again, the reason why I still like it is because Wayne Knight performance. I think Wayne Knight is still very, very committed for committing to the characters. If you guys don't know who Wayne Knight was, he was in Jurassic Park. He was Landry, right? Dachshund, we got Dachshund here. Like he was a good actor in that movie, and then he also did a good job in this movie. But I do think the writing specifically for his character are very cheesy. Like Scott Cawthon and Emma Tammy really wanted the audience to hate on Mr. Burke, and I guess like I do kind of hate him, but it's also like he's very cheesy, man. So like, okay, I kind of wish the writing was a bit better on that. And speaking of other characters, that was the more important one. Skeetulrich's character, like I said before, Skeetulrich does a good job performing as the character Henry, but he doesn't have much screen time in this movie. And that was disappointing, because it feels like the movie is trying to build the fact that, oh, maybe Henry is gonna be the key, for stopping this madness from the animatronic, and it feels like a teaser, and I guess he does kind of play a part in some way, because he kind of like give Mike an item to stop a certain character, which I like that, but I was expecting him to be like involved in the final battle or something like that, but like that never really happened. He has like a scene with Mike, and then that you see in the trailer, and then that's it. That's all he's seen from the movie. So that was disappointing, because I was expecting to see a bit more from the character, because it's Skeetulrich. Like, come on, man. Like, I feel like you could use him a bit more in the movie. Maybe they're saving his character for FNAF 3, who knows? Because this movie is also building the third movie, so maybe they're saving Skeetulrich's character way more in the third movie. I don't know, but I kind of wish we see a bit more of him. And also, okay, this next scene, I think I forgot to say this in a positive aspect. But this one I guess, is a bit more mixed than negative. It's actually the scene where Mike has to defend himself against the Wither animatronics, that obviously borrows some mechanics from the game, where he has to use the mask to fool the animatronics, but it does happen in the movie. You've seen it in the trailer, and it was amazing. I like the scene alone because it was so faithful to FNAF 2, but I do think the scene goes a bit too quick, or I don't really feel the tension in the scene, because the animatronic are moving very, very slowly, that you can hear the thumping sound, boom, 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 as they're like walking close towards you. So Mike has a lot of time to do his mission in that pizzeria, while at the same time checking the animatronic like moving closer bit by bit. And I feel like that's just kind of like in my opinion, kind of like ruining the tension, because like the animatronic are moving very, very slowly towards Mike, and Mike has enough time just to do whatever he wanted to do with the pizzeria before he put the mask on. And to me, I was like, man, I kind of wish that we don't really see the animatronic like walking slowly, because like again, it kind of breaks the tension, like in the game, it was so frantic, where you have to use the mask and all that kind of stuff. And I get it, that's like a game, and this is a movie, so some of the scenes is gonna be obviously directed differently. I get that, but at the same time, I think it kind of removes some of the tension in that scene when the animatronic are just like walking very, very slowly towards Mike. And also, speaking of the withered animatronics, like I love them, they're looking great, but there is one animatronic that I think was completely not exactly used properly in this movie, and that is Balloon Boy. That's right. Balloon Boy, again, Jim Henson Creature Shop does a good job designing Balloon Boy, but BB never did anything in this movie. He just did to say, laugh, saying hello, hi, just like in the game, but he never really did anything threatening or like dangerous towards Mike in the movie. He just kind of there. Balloon Boy doesn't have anything much to do in this movie, which is kind of sad, because I think he's like part of the main cast of the toy animatronics, because all the toy animatronic got a scene, where they actually get to do something in this movie and actually have some prominent screen time, especially Toy Chica. But for Balloon Boy, he barely appears, and when he does appear, he doesn't do much, and of course that you can make an argument that, well, in FNAF 2, Balloon Boy never really jump scare you or like or like scaring or whatever is that, but Balloon Boy in the game was much more annoying because like he disabled that flashlight. He's trying to get that sweet succulent AA battery, but that didn't really happen in this movie. I thought that they're going to exactly follow the same mechanic from FNAF 2, which they kind of did, but I said kind of because when Foxy appeared, obviously the same mechanic from the game happens, where Foxy was the only character, the only with their animatronics, they was able to see that, oh, like this is just a mask, like he's smart enough to see that, just like in the game. And I thought that Balloon Boy and Foxy is gonna team up in this movie to make this scene much more scary, and I thought that Mike is gonna like flash the light to Foxy, but that never really happened, like Foxy realizing that Mike is only wearing a mask, like he basically knows that, oh, it was just like a trick, like, yeah, it does happen just like in the game. But again, Balloon Boy was never really used properly in this movie. I thought that, again, I think they could easily use the same scenario from the game, because like in this scene alone, they try to replicate the game, right? So I don't understand why they don't use Balloon Boy in such a way where he appears in the office suddenly, and then like Mike is trying to use the flashlight and it was like disabled because like supernatural power, right? Just like in the game. And then you see Foxy, and then I was like, oh shit, Foxy is here. So like okay, I'm done, just like in the game, right? But that never really happens, and the way, my god, the way Mike just like completely disabled Balloon Boy was just like so funny in my opinion, because I didn't expect to see him to do that to Balloon Boy. And I was like, oh man, it was poor Balloon Boy, like barely appears, is completely misused in my opinion, not really like living up to the game in a way, where he's actually like a threat in the game, right? He was an annoying threat in the game. Everybody hates Balloon Boy in FNAF 2 because like he's just disabling your flashlight, and then obviously Foxy will get you. And they never really used that scenario, which is kind of disappointing in my opinion. And of course, speaking of the animatronics, like I said before, they're moving really slowly because I understand they're animatronics, they were happy, and then you hear the thumping sound, they were like very, very loud thumping noises every single time the animatronic took a step. But there is a couple of scenes in this movie that was like inconsistent, where sometimes you see the animatronic moving around and it was like really loud, because they're giant robots, right? But there is a moment where they just suddenly appear in your room, and then the characters never really hear any of the sound. And I was like, how do you not hear that? Like, is the animatronic was supposed to be loud, or they were able to teleport? Like, I have no idea. I don't think they were able to teleport, but there is a couple of moments, where the animatronic are like standing literally in front of the characters, and the characters never really realized that. And I was like, how do you not notice that? And how is the animatronic suddenly went to very, very loud to very, very quiet? Like, it was inconsistent in my opinion. That kind of took me out a bit, because it was just like, yeah, suddenly Toy Freddy was here and Toy Bonnie was there, and then nobody hear a noise from them. Like, oh, okay, is this animatronic was supposed to be loud? I don't know. But yeah, and also I want to criticize, I think, I guess some of the plot points can be, I think there is some plot holes in this movie that you kind of realize if you like thinking back to the movie. You know, when I first watching it, I was like, yeah, makes sense. You know, but once I realized, like, you know, like trying to piece together the information, I realized there is some plot holes in this movie. You know, from the opening and then from the third act. You know, because there is something happening in the third act that I don't want to spoil. That I think it was like it wasn't as effective as I wanted to be, because I think um you know, there is a plot revelation in the ending of the second movie here, but I feel like it wasn't really earned, and I feel like the motivation of it is kind of like lacking, because we barely spend any time with this plot point. So I don't really feel that much invested in it, because the ending of this movie, it feels like it feels like the ending of a Scream movie, to be honest, you know, which is kind of like funny to me, but at the same time, it wasn't as effective, and I think it could be. I think the movie could use a bit more runtime to focus on certain like plot points or plot threads and try to expand on that, you know. And I think there is a way for them to expand on that, maybe in the third movie. Maybe this is just a setup for the third movie. I don't know, but it feels like, yeah, I feel like there is a they could spend a bit more time with some of the plot point here instead of just like breezing by, you know. And I think it could make the ending a bit more stronger, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that's gonna be my review for FNAF 2, guys. You know, I think I will, maybe I will do like a spoiler review maybe on Friday once the movie already came out. You know, because right now obviously no spoilers, right? And yeah, I mean, in conclusion, I still like FNAF 2. You know, I still like this movie, and there is a feeling that I kind of want to rewatch it again. Because this is such a huge improvement for the first movie. Even though yes, the bar wasn't that high to begin with, but I think FNAF 2 really tries to listen to the criticism, you know, and then try to improve the plot, improve the characters, improve the scare. And that I think the movie managed to create some creepy moments, especially with the puppet there. The puppet is actually the best part in this movie, you know, and of course Toy Chica, you know, which is, I didn't expect that, but still, overall this is like a very solid sequel. It's fun, it's engaging, you know. There is a lot of action sequence with the animatronic, you know, which I think is amazing. It's not perfect, you know, like I said before, there is some plot points that I think it's kind of like loosely threading to like loosely related to one another, and I think it could use a stronger motivation, especially for the third act, in my opinion. But I mean, overall, I really enjoyed this movie. It is such a huge improvement. So yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to see FNAF 3 now, maybe in 2027, who knows. But yeah, it is exciting. And hopefully this movie um, is gonna have like a huge box office returns, you know, because the first movie almost reaches 300 million, you know. But I think for this movie deserve more than 300 mil, in my opinion, maybe 400, you know, if possible, because this movie's budget is like 51 million, which is such a huge improvement, you know. And I think you can definitely feel that in this movie. That's why there is a much more action with the animatronic, you know. So hopefully that the box office return will be more than 300 mil this time around, you know. But yeah, that's my wish. But either way, guys, that's my review. Let me know, guys, in the comment section below, what do you guys think about this movie right here, you know. Like, do you guys think this movie FNAF 2 is much better than FNAF 1, or do you guys still prefer the first movie over this one, you know? And which is your favorite scene in the movie, and which one is your favorite scene with the animatronics, you know, and which one is your favorite kills, you know? And of course, I guess, like, maybe you guys can loosely tell me about how you think about the ending of the movie, you know, because I have a mixed feeling for it. You know, I still like it, but I think it could have been much better if they actually, again, spend more time with certain plot points, in my opinion, to make the ending works, you know. But this is my opinion, you know. So let me know, guys, all of your opinions in the comment section below. And if you guys enjoyed this movie review, then make sure, guys, you know, bite that subscribe and like button and share the videos, usual stuff. And I guess maybe stay tuned for the spoiler review for FNAF 2, maybe in Friday, but we'll see. But either way, guys, you know, that's my movie review for FNAF 2. Hopefully you guys will have a fun time watching this movie, and I cannot wait to see the audience reaction for FNAF 2, you know, actually. So that's cool. But either way, guys, that's my review, and hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one then. Bye.